Hey guys, it's Amber with NotableInk.com, and I'm thrilled to be sharing this card from Alex Syberia's latest Holiday 2019 release. I'm going to have a link to her store down below so you can check out the full release. And up in the right hand corner, I will also link to another video I did. I watercolored her Christmas bouquet. So to color the gingerbread house, I'm going to be using the E20 Copic color family. And I'm going to do a little bit of chatting in this beginning of the video, and then I'll put on some music because this video is about 21 minutes long. I left the majority of the coloring in here. I maybe didn't show every single leaf that I colored or every, multiple items of the same thing, but I left a lot of the coloring in here. This image is really quite involved. It's absolutely the largest Copic image I've ever done, and I'm absolutely overjoyed with how this thing came out. I actually did this coloring in one sitting, which is really unusual for me, but I just put something on Netflix to listen to, and I was just so into coloring this image. Um, a note about the little gingerbread area right here. I only covered part of it or colored part of it to start with because I was a little bit worried that the Copic markers were going to dry sooner than I could get to the whole front of the gingerbread house. So that's why you see me do this in kind of two sections. I am working on my glass mat. Now, normally when I Copic color and I'm doing just an A2 size piece of cardstock, normally I will put another piece of cardstock underneath that because I generally want to prevent any kind of bleed back. But this is a really large image and it has large open spaces, so I'm coloring directly on my glass mat because I want the markers to stay wet a little bit longer. In order to get a good blend, that's what I'm going to need in this particular situation. So I'm sure you have like your favorite Copic color artists that you listen to, and you probably listen to a bunch of different people, and there's so many different opinions on how you should Copic color. I really think it's important for you to find the best technique for you. And also, I kind of look at it as sometimes I will color light to dark, sometimes I'll color dark to light, and it really just depends on the situation. So look at your coloring situationally is would be my best advice. There isn't an end all be all way to do any particular thing. So like sometimes I put a piece of cardstock underneath what I'm coloring, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I go light to dark, sometimes I go dark to light. So it really just depends on the situation. If I'm doing a really large area, then I might put down 2 base coats of the lightest color so I have enough pigment on the page for the colors to blend. If I'm doing a really small petal, I'm probably going to start with my darkest color and then come in with my lightest colors to blend because there's less space. The Copic marker is going to stay wet longer, or it's not going to evaporate as fast. You can get to those areas rather. It probably still evaporates at the same amount of time. The difference is because it's a small area, I can get to the next color and blend it faster before it evaporates. Hopefully that makes sense. With the larger areas, I need a little more time. So I'm either going to be doing the flicking motion for my coloring, or as you could see, as I was doing on the gingerbread, I did some dotting techniques just to add a little bit of that cookie texture to the house. I also do some dotting technique up in my orange up at the top. And be sure to check out my watercolor video with Alex's Christmas bouquet stamp. I do watercolor the orange slice in there. Unfortunately, I must have not filmed doing the orange slice of this gingerbread house, but I use the same technique when I'm watercoloring as I did with the Copic, and it's similar the way that I did the texture and the color. So if you're interested in the orange slice, definitely check out my other video. So let's talk about paper. So when I first started Copic coloring, I used Nina Solar White, like so many different people had recommended. And I recently took my second Copic college class with Michelle Houghton. And at this class, she recommended Hammer Mill copy paper. It's a premium copy paper, and it's 60 pounds. So it's actually a really thin paper. It's not a cardstock at all. It's a paper. And I absolutely love coloring on it. I've done it several times now and I don't get bleeding outside the lines. It's a super smooth paper. What I love most about it is being able to print on it. So with cardstock, when you have cardstock going through your home printer, you have to change the settings of your printer. You want to make sure that you change it to the thickest setting option that you have. If you have a manual bypass tray, then you want to use that so that your cardstock goes straight through the printer versus going around, kind of having to curve around that automatic feed. Usually if it's curving around the automatic feed, it's going to come out and it's going to be a little bit curled up, or it might completely jam your printer also. So those are the challenges that using this paper, which is only 60 pounds, it's a cover weight, but it's only 60 pounds, you can completely avoid that. It prints beautifully with my laser printer and it comes out absolutely flat. So you can see this is flat against my surface and I've just loved it. The other thing I really like about this paper is when I go to, if I wanted to fussy cut this, I would never do that because of all of those pine needles. No way. No way. I don't love fussy cutting. But if I go to fussy cut an image, like I recently fussy cut a snowman, a little snowman that I colored. It's super easy to fussy cut because it's a thinner paper and you get, I tend to get a crisper edge when I fussy cut a thinner paper versus, kind of the difference, like if you fussy cut an 80-pound Nina versus a 110-pound Nina, probably your 80 pounds going to look a little better, at least for me. So those are a few reasons why I really like this particular paper. And I'll have it linked down below in case you want to check it out. It's also pretty inexpensive. You can get 250 sheets of it for about $17, which is pretty nice. So I've gone ahead and pulled up some cinnamon sticks over here on my phone. Now, it turned out that my absolute favorite parts of this image were the cinnamon sticks and the orange. The reason I think that is because those are the two areas where I pulled up a photo and colored from the photo. I tend to get the best result when I do that, and I don't know why I don't do it for everything. I really should. The reason I get the best result is because I'm color matching. I'm color matching to a realistic photo. And so you're going to see me use, I think I'm using the E1 family. So that was E15, that was E09 maybe that I just used. I'll try and get these written down, you guys. So that was E16. But so I'm going to look at the photo again. And I'm going to realize that I need this cinnamon stick to be more red. So I'm going to pull out, I think at that point I pull out the E09. And then it's not dark enough. I look at the photo again and I pull out the E29 to get much darker shadows. So if you're looking to get your Copic coloring to the next level, take a look at a realistic photo when you do something. So even though this isn't a super realistic image here, the way that I've colored the gingerbread house and some of the other areas that I'm going to color, looking at a realistic photo is definitely going to help you get your Copic coloring to the next level. So here is E09, and you can see I just tested out a couple colors on my scratch sheet there because I needed to add some more red to this cinnamon stick to get it to look a little more realistic. And then there's the E29. And I did the same with the orange slice. So what I Googled for the orange slice was a dried orange slice because this was like kind of like a potpourri situation going on here. So I imagined that that orange slice would be dried. And so I used some darker yellows. I believe I used YR21, 24, and 28 for those. I'm not entirely sure because I don't have it on film. The other advice I'll share before I pop on some music is to not be afraid of dark contrast. I find, so if I'm looking at an image and I'm like, it just looks flat or it just looks like it's missing something, usually what it's missing is a darker color. And so when you're thinking about adding a darker color, remember to think outside of the color family. So if you're doing red, maybe it's a brown that's going to be best for your darkest shadows. Sometimes, if you're doing something, it might be a dark blue that works best for your darker shadows. So You may need to think outside of your color family and just don't be afraid of making things darker. Get it to where you're comfortable. Use the colors that you're comfortable with. And if it's just missing that little something, put in a touch of that darker color and then blend it out just a little bit, or sometimes not even at all, and see how you feel. So that's what I kept doing. So you can see I've got the E29 and I'm just keeping, I keep adding darker, darker, darker colors, especially in those recesses, kind of like the lattice on the roof where it almost is like, like you can emboss cookie dough with a rolling pin. That's kind of what I imagined was going on the front of the house there. So I just made it really dark in those recesses. And then it started to look better to me. It started to look like it had more character and life. So don't be afraid of your dark colors. Embrace it. Go for it. It's just a piece of paper, right? If it doesn't work out, you might have lost a little time, but you'll have learned an awful lot along the way. So I will pop on some music and I will catch you back closer to the end for some more chatting. All right, we're in the home stretch of our coloring here, and for the snowy roof, I'm going to use W00, W1, and W3, and then I'm also going to come in with the colorless blender to kind of blend that out in the middle, and I'm just doing some choppy strokes here. I'm not really flicking, I'm kind of dotting, but more with the side of the marker so that they're kind of wide, just to add some texture to it. Here I come in with the colorless blender, and that's going to super saturate the page, and I can't really see the color well. So you see me there kind of fanning it around to evaporate the alcohol so that I can better see how much pigment I actually have on there. So you may need to do that. Just kind of remember that the colorless blender is going to darken the page, and it's not going to give you an accurate assessment of how much color you have there. So I'm going to finish up the snow here. There's also some snow on the roof and the chimney up top. I'm not going to do all of it though, because I am going to trim this down to an A2 size. So here I'm going to do the top of the ornament in W9, W7, I think W5, 3, and 1. So I kind of start with the darkest and then go down to the lightest, and I leave the brightest highlight in the center there. And after I'm done with this, I'll add some shadow to these candy cane pieces at the front of the house with those same warm gray markers, so the 3, the 1, and probably the 00. And then I'm going to cut it down to A2 size, and unfortunately I don't have the footage of me adding the tabletop in. But here's a close-up of the card. So this was right after I finished it and right on my glass mat here. I did flick on some gold spatter, and then here you can see the table that I made with the YG91 marker. I just did one color, and I did add a casted shadow from the gingerbread, and I just totally love how this turned out, you guys. I particularly love that area there with the window and the shutters, and how the green pine needles just cover that. I think there's a lot of depth there. And then my other two favorite areas are the cinnamon sticks and then the orange rind, because they look a little more realistic to me. So I added a sentiment to the roof, and that's it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this card today, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button. Definitely hit the like button so that YouTube will share this with other Copic enthusiasts, and definitely check out Alex's release because it is just so awesome. There are so many great images to color, and if you're following along with Kathy Rack's 30-day coloring challenge, then they're perfect for that. You guys can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Notable Ink. Thanks so much for joining me again today, and I will be back soon with more inspiration. Until then, breathe, ink, inspire.